Welcome to Impact Makers Radio, helping you to find jargon-free information before choosing a professional to help solve your problems and live the life you love. And here's your host, Stuart Andrew Alexander.
Hi, and welcome to another Let's Talk Divorce conversation. And during this segment of the show, ladies and gentlemen, I'm very pleased to say that we have a Divorce Mediator, Kathleen Leedy, who is the owner of Kathleen Ruane Leedy Mediation Services, and she's calling in all the way from Gloucester, Massachusetts. Now, Kathleen, who has a wealth of experience in the area of divorce mediation, will be talking to you today about the magic of mediating the tough issues. Now, that sounds like a really interesting topic, so I can't wait to see what Kathleen has to share with us today. So, if you are one of the many increasing numbers of divorcing people in the Gloucester, Massachusetts area, and you feel that today's topic may be relevant to your current situation, it may be an idea just to stop what you're doing. Log out of Facebook, stop the Twittering, Instagramming, or anything else you happen to be doing which may cause a distraction, and you might even want to pick up a notepad and pen and get ready to take some notes as we listen in to what Kathleen has to share with us today. So, with that said, let's not keep her waiting a moment longer. Welcome to the show, Kathleen.
Good morning, Stuart. Thank you for inviting me. How are you?
You are so welcome, my dear. I am fantastic. I'm on top of the world. The sun is shining outside. Things could not be better. So, that said, Kathleen, before we actually get into the meat and potatoes, as we like to say in the UK, let's just make something very, very clear from the onset. It goes without saying that anything you share with us today is not legal advice or legal assistance. It's purely for the purpose of sharing information. Now, I'd just like you just to expand on that in your own words so that everybody is absolutely clear about what we're doing today.
I would totally agree with that. The show is about information purposes and my experiences as a divorce mediator, and it is not about giving legal advice.
Okay, folks, you heard that. So let's jump straight in with our first question for today. Tell us about your company then, Kathleen. Kathleen Ruane Leedy Mediation Services. I love the name of that company, by the way. And tell us about the people you serve and the kinds of situations they find themselves in when they come to you for your help.
Well, thank you. My company is myself, and I have a both private practice, and I work for a nonprofit as well. So I'm in court. So I do a combination of being in court, seeing lots of people that have come into court for their divorce at the pretrial phase, and I also see lots of people that come into my private practice that find me. And I'm located in this beautiful old schoolhouse in Gloucester, Mass., and it's very homey and it's very comfortable. So I enjoy mediating on both ends, both in court and in my private practice. Oftentimes, I also will go on location because sometimes people feel more comfortable in a restaurant or actually in their homes. So where a person wants to mediate is where I go. And of course, in court, I have to go to where the court says I must mediate.
So when you think about those people that you've just described then, Kathleen, what are the advantages of mediating tough issues? Well,
the range of people that I see are from, their 20s, latest, the oldest age I've seen is age of 75. And the mediation itself, the bare bones of mediation, Stuart, is about clarity and an agreement. So the advantages of seeking clarity as opposed to telling someone what to do and coming to an agreement is very, very clear because it's simply a conversation between two people to see if they can reach an agreement. It's not a mediator telling them what to do.
And in terms of the myths that are out there, what do you feel are some of the biggest myths when it comes to mediating those tough issues?
Well, I think one of the biggest myths is that mediation is not around when actually it is. You can, type in online mediation, divorce mediation, and find out the locations of mediators. There are also mediation companies across the country. Often I mediate in Washington State as well as Massachusetts, and Washington State has a mediation company in every single county. The other myth I would say, Stuart, is that people think that if they sit before a mediator, the mediator either will tell them what to do or will give them advice. And those two issues are just not true because mediators act as neutrals. We're kind of like Switzerland with people. And we promote good conversation to gain the clarity which helps people come to their own agreements. In court, the magistrates oftentimes like to say, when you choose mediation, you become the judges of your own case, which I think is a really nice way to put it as well.
Now, I believe in some states in the US, before you actually reach a point of going to court, you have to go through mediation, right? Is that the case in Massachusetts?
Not in Massachusetts, but where I was first trained in Atlanta, Georgia, that is the case. Oftentimes you cannot come before the judge unless you have a mediated divorce agreement.
So even though it's not the law, it's not legislative, would you advise anybody out there who finds themselves considering their options for divorce to consider the services of a mediator?
Absolutely, because mediation, again, is about a conversation between two people. And with that conversation, with the skills of trained mediators, we understand how to pursue clarity in what people are saying to each other with their body language and their words. So the process, we're highly trained. And if you find a very good mediator, that process of the pragmatism of what's being said, but the intuitive process of watching someone's body language at the same time is this blend of intuition and pragmatism that allows a mediator to pursue clarity for the people that are talking to each other. And not anyone else offers that process.
Mm-hmm. Well, thanks for sharing that with us, Kathleen. I mean, you mentioned earlier that one of the myths out there are that mediation is, it doesn't exist, so to speak. With that in mind then, Kathleen, what are some of the misconceptions around your industry, the legal industry?
I would say one of the misperceptions is that the problem is too difficult. Therefore, we have to hire lawyers to defend us, to be our personal pit bulls, as I like to say. There's no problem that's too difficult for mediation. And part of what's great about mediation is that if we need to consider outside experts, we can and we will. We can also send them each person out to get their own expert to consult with. Also, in most states, mediation produces in divorce a memorandum of understanding that then the people will take to their own lawyer, or maybe they'll decide to share a lawyer to draft that into their separation or their divorce agreement. So with the protection of that two-step process, they've done all the hard work in mediation, Stuart, right? Then they walk that document into a lawyer, and the lawyer says, yep, everything looks good, or the lawyer says, well, let's consider this. So they're paying the lawyer a one-time fee to draft a separation agreement, to draft a divorce agreement, instead of sitting for weeks and months and sometimes years at the lawyer fees. We've done all the hard work in mediation, and the lawyer just kind of is the frosting on the cake.
So we're talking about the magic of mediating through tough issues. What are some of your clients' most common fears when it comes to mediation?
Oh, gosh. There's a lot of common fears.
Right.
Number one, fear of the unknown. So Stuart, I'm a mediator trainer. When I go across the country and I train mediators when they're learning to become mediators, I tell them you need to bring your warmth with you, because the first thing that people can trust in mediation is the mediator. So the fear of the unknown, the inability to trust, because divorce mediation is all about a redo. Somehow, some way, they're redoing their life, they're repurposing their life, they're doing all these reimagining what their world's going to look like, reevaluating their past world, combining it with their new world. They're trying to recapture something, beauty back in their life. So to build that trust with the mediator is very, very important, because if they trust the mediator, the mediation process, then they can start to trust the direction that they're moving in. Another common fear would probably be having a voice in mediation, especially if they've been married to someone who has a much stronger, powerful voice in themselves. Where's the balance? Are they going to be, not able to speak? And that's what the mediators, that's what we're trained to do. Make sure that mediation table is neutral, make sure that everyone's heard clearly, and make sure that that everyone has, the same balanced amount of face time.
This is really important to speak about some of your clients' fears that you come across on a day-to-day basis, because it just demonstrates just how much you understand them. So with those common fears that you just mentioned in mind then, Kathleen, what can they do to actually get past those fears?
Well, you get past those fears a step at a time. I often say to my, parties, trust doesn't have to be a 4-lane highway. It's not an interstate. Oftentimes building trust and getting past all of the fears is a step at a time. So, Stuart, when a mediator understands what a person is saying and it gets clarified and that person feels understood, that is the first part of overcoming any of the fears, whatever they may be. And that starts the process. And then mediation is about hearing people together in what we call a joint session, and then having a private session with an extra layer of confidentiality where I become that person's 100% mediator for those moments. So with the extra layer of confidentiality where I won't repeat what they don't want me to the other person, that also helps overcome the fears. So the process is so good. It was developed by one of our past presidents and one of our Supreme Court justices. It's a very good process that mediators are trained to follow.
So what other perceived obstacles do you see out there that might be preventing people in divorce from seeking the help of a divorce mediator like yourself?
Well, one of the obstacles is that we need to see an attorney. And attorneys are so important. They have, they're so educated and accomplished about the law. And that obstacle of we need an attorney instead of a mediator, what can a mediator do for us, is alive and well. Sometimes the professions even clash with each other because mediation is about dollars as well. And being an attorney is about dollars as well. And sometimes, there's a turf issue about we want those dollars or we think we can do a better job as our parties pay us the dollars than you can. So there's a bit of a turf war sometimes in some states. And when a divorce is very contentious, going out and getting my attorney, my pit bull to fight for me is an emotional position. Mediation is more about interest. We have positions, but what are your interests behind the position? And that's how we're trained, and that's why we're so good at what we do, because we go beyond, I want someone to protect me, I want my pit bull lawyer. We go beyond that. We say, how come? What's going on with that you want to have your pit bull lawyer? So, Stuart, when you've been hurt in life and you want to be protected, you go out and get a lawyer to stand up for you, and that's what lawyers do, and they're very good at it.
So can you share an example, and obviously keeping your client's confidentiality in mind then, Kathleen, well, please share an example of how you've actually helped someone to overcome those obstacles, or even how you would go about helping somebody to overcome those obstacles and succeed in mediating through tough issues.
Oh my gosh, I have so many stories in my head. Oh my gosh, yes. One time in court, Stuart, I was dealing with a man in the hallway, and he screamed at me. He said, "I've tried mediation before and it didn't work." Just yelled at me. Yes. And I said to him, "I'm a really good mediator. I have over a 90% agreement rate, over 200 cases. Would you like to try one more time?" That worked for him.
Fantastic.
That's why I'm saying, the intuitive part of being a mediator is very important, because usually when someone's screaming at a person, we like to back away, right?
Right.
But with mediation training, I call that going into the heat. I'm neutral. I'm not going to judge that person for their emotion, but I'm going to try to do what I'm supposed to be doing for them. That's one example. One time I had a man that was very much overlooked because of his drug and alcohol usage in the mediation process. He had been in several times prior to other mediators, and he was overlooked. He smelled of alcohol and things like that, and because of all that, he was overlooked. And this was in court, and he came into the mediation process, and I didn't overlook him. Mediators are supposed to be neutral. We're not supposed to be judging and overlooking people. We're supposed to be listening and clarifying what they're saying. And through that process of mediation, he actually got the justice that he actually was due, that had been denied for so long because of his state of affairs in his life. And he was very, very, very happy, and actually started weeping because of the fact that he finally saw the justice that he knew that he deserved with his parenting time with his children.
As a reminder, ladies and gentlemen, my guest today is Kathleen Leedy of Kathleen Ruane Leedy Mediation Services, and she's here today talking about the magic of mediating tough issues. Now, with that in mind then, Kathleen, and for those people out there who find themselves in that unfortunate position where they're considering their options for divorce, what are some of the unknown pitfalls or common mistakes that they need to keep in mind?
Common mistakes and unknown pitfalls of divorce.
So many, right? So many.
Yeah. Well,
I'll tell you what, Kathleen, just share a couple of quick-fire bullet points then, maybe 2 or 3 quick-fire bullet points. That's going to be really useful for the listeners out there.
I can do that. Your state, you have to know the law. You have to know whether one person can get a divorce quickly or not. You have to understand that if 2 people go before with a desire of divorce, how that works. You have to understand that in most states, the state looks at a marriage as all of the assets and liabilities all in one great big pot that need to be divided equitably. Also, a lot of people think that if someone's had an affair, that they're going to absolutely get more money from the marriage because of the affair, when actually affairs have to be proven, usually followed by private investigators with a whole process, which takes a lot of money to do that. So these are some of the pitfalls that I've run into.
So how can those pitfalls and mistakes be avoided then, Kathleen?
People have to talk to somebody about them. The best thing to do is to walk into court, to go into legal services in court, because that's free. They have to start to educate themselves because they're embarking upon a legal process that needs time and attention, and you need to be educated about what's expected of each person in a divorce. That's what I would recommend. And then secondly, go talk to a mediator. Go have a consult with mediation to see what that entails, because Stuart, oftentimes when I'm mediating, families get back together. That's why it's so good about being a mediator, because being a neutral, if a family wants to heal itself, that's okay with me. Just because I'm a divorce mediator doesn't mean that everyone that comes in to see me ends up wanting a divorce, but because mediation clarifies the issues, sometimes people even bring their children in, all the issues get clarified, Stuart, and they stay together.
Fantastic. That must just give you so much joy when that happens, and kind of leads me to my next question. I mean, you've been in this industry for a while. You've helped a lot of people to achieve that transformation they were looking for when they initially reached out to you then, Kathleen. So when that happens, please share with us, how does that make you feel? What do you get from that then, Kathleen?
It's just magic. Mm-hmm. I was a high school teacher for 21 years, and I was a health instructor, health teacher, 10th graders, co-ed classes. And I would see the magic come into my students' eyes when they understood the concepts they were talking about, when they finally got it. Or when I had a student in high school that failed their test, and I would say, you know this information, come up to me. I want to give you this test verbally after school. And they would get all of the answers right because now they were more comfortable. And you see that beautiful hope and that confidence and that pride come into their eyes. It's the same thing in divorce, in the mediation process that I do. All of a sudden, there's awareness because of the clarity of what's being communicated. Because you want more communication in mediation, not less, right? Because of the awareness of the clarity of the communication, all of a sudden, it's the do difference, Stuart, because this is what you've been doing, this is how you've been talking, this is the action steps you've been taking. Let's do something different. And what is that going to do? And when people understand that a do different action point makes a different, happier life point, that's the magic. And when you see that, Stuart, oh my gosh, I've ended up in people's arms. We've all been crying, all hugging and kissing each other goodbye, both in court and in my private practice, shaking hands. Everyone is so grateful because they've come to mediation because they have problems they can't fix. And whether it's the fix is the divorce or the fix is staying together, we need our problems fixed so we can move on and live our lives.
Wow, I'm almost welling up here just listening to that. That's fantastic. So, listen, nobody ever follows a straight path from where they started to where they are in life today. So, with that said, what led you down the winding path to becoming a divorce mediator? But not only that, a divorce mediator that trains other mediators. What inspired you? What led you down that path?
I was living in Atlanta when the Southwest AirTran airline deal was merging, but it was still private. It wasn't public knowledge, and I was sitting around with a bunch of union people Wednesday nights, in Buckhead, Georgia, and we were talking about some of these points, and someone turned to me and said, "You need to be a mediator." And I said, "What's that?" So then I called my children and my sister, and I said, they live in New York City, and I said, "Someone told me that I should be a mediator," and everyone went, "You'd be great at that." And I went, "What is it?" And I didn't know what it was. That's how I got started.
Like I said, nothing's ever straightforward. It's just always some kind of event that happens that just triggers something. That's fantastic. Please do continue.
That's what happened. So I was living in Atlanta, and I went down to the original Justice Center of Atlanta, one of the first, started in the country back after there was a strike. And President Carter said, "Okay, enough of this. We're going to set up mediation centers." And I trained there, and I had a Superior Court justice ask me to come mediate for him after my training. And I said, "No, I don't know what I'm doing yet. There's no way I'm going to do that." So I said no to more opportunities in 2009 because I wasn't confident in my abilities yet, because I needed to have my, batting cage of practice in court, where you build your mediation skills. Small claims court, landlord-tenant court cases is where a mediator builds your skills anywhere in the country. That's the process. I call it the batting cage when I train. We just finished a training 2 weeks ago in a nonprofit that I work for, actually in Worcester, Mass. And people loved it, and they're headed straight to small claims where they can be under the guidance of a trained mediator, and they will be coached probably to do a good job. So that's how it happened for me. And now with 300 cases under my belt, I think I might know what I'm doing.
I think you may know what you're doing also. And just like that event happened in your life where somebody says, "Hey, you make a great mediator." Can you share a lesson also, maybe an event, something what happened earlier on in your career that still impacts how you do business today?
What impacts me in my career is curiosity. I want to make sure that I'm a curious enough mediator that I won't leave anything on the table that would help someone come to a mediated agreement. I have a very high agreement rate, over 90%. And it's because I think I'm curious about what I don't know, and I'm also like a dog with a bone. I will use any of my skills to help people come to an agreement, even if the temperature's hot in the room. I'm still there. I'm still standing by. I'm still with them, and I will walk through it with them as their mediator.
I would like to think, and correct me if I'm wrong, because this is from a layman's perspective, but I would like to think, because at some stage when a couple got married, they were in love with each other, and they certainly, the last thing they had on their mind was divorce, or using a mediator or any other kind of third party coming into their lives at some stage in the future. So I would like to think that when people sit down with you, regardless of how they feel, maybe they're at conflict with each other, that deep down that they want a really amicable outcome. Am I being naive here? What's your experience?
You're not being naive. People do want their problems resolved. One way or the other, people want their problems resolved. I recently had 2 young people in their 20s pursuing a divorce, and one small child is 5. And, the child was being pushed and pulled between the 2 of them. And through the lengthy mediation process, I think I saw them 3 times, 2-hour sessions. So that's 6 hours together, mediation. I finally came up with a clarity that they needed to be able to be different from each other. And I said, "You know what, I think it sounds like we may need to create a climate here, because it seems like your spring and your fall, the season of spring, season of autumn, and we all mostly like all the seasons, but they're different. Just as you're both different from each other, there are still very, very good things about each other that you both need to respect, because you're spring and you're fall, and there's a season in between you. So do you think that we can create a climate between you that would work? So you are not telling your 5-year-old all the bad, awful things about each other, but you're saying good things about each other. Are you willing to create a climate?" And Stuart, once it was put with that kind of clarity, once they were validated for the good things they brought to the table as people in life, they were willing to make a new climate. So we made a season that they could agree upon a new season, a new climate where they that had new rules, where they could do something different, which meant they were going to live their lives in a different way. They were so happy they asked if they could come back for a 6-month checkup to make sure that they were still on track.
You're really good at this. So, you know something so good, Kathleen. I think I'm going to get married and then just file for divorce just so I could be your client. You're just so good.
All right, I want to come to where you are, Stuart, because I have to know your location. And we just got dumped 17 inches of snow. So any mediation I do, I'm coming to where you are
All
right now. Okay?
I'm going to get married. You come over here to the Cayman Islands, and then you can mediate my case. All right.
Very good.
All right. So moving forward, what's the most important question that people, for those people who find themselves considering divorce, or they're in divorce, or they maybe even have gone through divorce, should ask themselves as they consider taking on the services of a divorce mediator?
Most important question in a divorce, whether it's a lawyer or a mediator, is how much money do you want to spend to get it? Most people only have so much money, Stuart, and divorce is about division. They're splitting everything. The heart doesn't rip even, and neither does the money, right? So with mediation, especially, I work for a nonprofit, and Gloucester has a sliding scale. You can start as little as $25 an hour to get your divorce mediation, which is very different than attorney fees or my private practice, which is $250 an hour. So it's about the money. Even though it's, human lives are involved, the most important question they need to ask themselves is how much money are they willing to put toward their divorce? And that will help them understand where they want to put their money. And then number two, how much clarity do they want to have about why they're getting divorced? And do they want to walk away? What do they want to walk away with? A bit of a friendship or no friendship at all? But what's the clarity they want with the divorce too? Because a lot of people, Stuart, how are you married, and then how are you single? How do you behave like a single person now? What does that look like? Especially people that have been married 25 years. Oh, I'm single now? So mediation can address all those issues, which makes it incredibly valuable.
So you've shared an incredible amount of value today, Kathleen, so I really want to thank you for that before we move on. However, there may be somebody out there, even though you've shared lots of great content with us, there may be someone who feels that they still want to know more about the magic of mediating tough issues. So if that's the case, then Kathleen, how can somebody find out more? What's the easiest way to get in touch with you?
I would say my website, kruaneleedy.com, is the easiest way to get in touch with me. I do allow people to call my cell as well. That's 717-977-7207. And those two ways are the ways to reach me.
Okay, so let me just do this then for the listeners then, Kathleen, because you've obviously demonstrated that you know what you're doing and that you really care about your clients. However, there may be somebody who's still sat on the fence and they're wanting to pick up the phone and give you a call, but they may have one or two reservations about what's going to happen on the other end of that call. So can you just quickly walk them through exactly what will happen so they know that Kathleen's not going to be waiting with a Fred Flintstone club to drag them by the hair and hit them over the head and sell them everything under the sun? Can you just give them a quick overview of what actually happens when they call you then, Kathleen?
I like the Flintstones. I used to watch them when I was a little girl.
I love the Flintstones. Oh my goodness, I still watch it now.
Especially the ribs they put on the side of the car when he went up to the fast food place and put the great big rack of ribs on his car. What's going to happen is that
go ahead.
I'm going to have a conversation, just say, what's going on in your world, and how is it, that you think mediation can work for you. And then I'll do an intake, and oftentimes people want, I'll give a 15-minute free consult as well. And you can get a lot done talking about the mediation process in 15 minutes, and I will educate them on the process and let them know clearly how it works, not try to convince them. Once they understand the process and they've moved forward with their thinking in our conversation, then they can decide if they'd like to pursue that process. And if they would like to pursue it with me, then they can come on in and we'll have a conversation face-to-face instead of a telephone discussion. Or I'll come to them, actually.
Okay, thanks for that, Kathleen. That is all we have time for today, unfortunately. I do feel that we could still speak for hours and hours on end on this topic, however. Yeah, it's right. Yeah, we're just scratching the tip of the iceberg today, but I think you've done a great job of just providing a 30,000-foot overview of how you can actually help those people out there who find themselves in that unfortunate position of considering their options for divorce. So let me just remind you, ladies and gentlemen, we have been listening to Divorce Mediator Kathleen Leedy, who is the owner of Kathleen Ruane Leedy Mediation Services in Gloucester, Massachusetts. Thank you so much for sharing so generously with us today, Kathleen. You have certainly demonstrated that you are a true educator, advocate, and certainly a helpful advisor for your client's success. So thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. It was a pleasure. Thank you very much. Have a great day.
Thank you also so much, my dear. And I'd also like to take a moment to say a big thank you to you. Thank you to you if you're out there in the Gloucester, Massachusetts area and you're tuning in right now. Thanks for joining us on this very insightful and informative conversation with one of the leading divorce mediators. And I must add, she's not only a divorce mediator, but she trains divorce mediators. So you can only imagine the level of her skill. Her name again is Kathleen Leedy. She's right out there in Gloucester, Massachusetts, and make sure you do check her out. Give her a call, visit her website. There are some really good resources on there. I'm absolutely sure that after listening to Kathleen today, whatever you do decide to do, that you're going to be in a great place to get started. So that's it, folks. Again, my name is Stuart Andrew Alexander. I'm a long distance relative of the British royal family, but they don't tell anybody about it, so it's our secret, okay? So, oh, you didn't know that, Kathleen?
No, you sprung that on me just now.
Oh my goodness, that Prince Charles is a naughty boy. But anyway, besides that, we'll be back shortly with some more leading divorce professionals in this, our series of Let's Talk Divorce Conversations. So, until then, take care, have a great day, and we'll talk real soon.
Thank you for tuning in to Impact Makers Radio. To listen to all past, present, and future industry thought leaders and trendsetters, visit us at impactmakersradio.com.